Welcome back to News Junkies, and we're visiting with our travel guide to the unknown, the very lovely Michelle Hubbard. And Michelle, good to have you back.
Thanks, Bill. Good to be here.
Well, it's always good to have you with us, and today we're going to be talking about
Opposites.
Opposites, okay.
And including opposites, because a lot of times we'll be in a situation or facing a decision, and all we'll see is black or white, either or. But if we can kind of take a step back and start maybe blurring the two, something totally new perspective, new possibility of solution can arise. And that's where the miracles come from, is that space of kind of messy, blurry, melting down these opposites.
All right, so that being said, can you give us some examples of what you're talking about?
Well, one example is right now, as we're taping this, it's right after Halloween, a few weeks before Thanksgiving, and there are some people who are already decorating for Christmas. And there are people who don't like seeing Christmas decorations or hearing Christmas carols this early and feel like Thanksgiving should be for Thanksgiving and Christmas should come after Thanksgiving and be for Christmas.
Well, I know that one department store this year, and I won't mention which one, but they're saying, and they've come out publicly to do this, is they're not going to roll out their Christmas decorations until after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and that's okay. I'm not saying you can only have one. What I'm saying is, what about both? Suppose if we just had this holiday season that as we approach Thanksgiving has a whole bunch of celebration going on and pretty colors going on, and there's a certain somberness in a way to gratitude. Our Thanksgiving began by a people called pilgrims, and the word grim is in the approach. So what if there is a little bit of fun and maybe a little bit of magic turkey kind of action? And what if around Christmas there's a little bit more feeling of profound, awestruck gratitude? Suppose it gets a little bit blurry like that.
Well, that I think actually comes into play for those that practice a certain or many types of religions. That they would have that kind of an attitude of gratitude, that I would call it. Where I think I would have my problem is where you would see Christmas decorations in the stores in July and August. That's where I would have, that's pushing it. But okay, as we approach the fall, I can understand that more and more.
Yeah, and Christmas is an example. You know, in our everyday lives, other scenarios may happen, such as, I've been invited to this party where this person's going to be. And I have this conversation that's incomplete with this person, but I want to go to the party, but I'm not ready to talk to them, and it becomes an either or. Well, suppose for a minute you start feeling more into, here's what I'm upset about with this person, and feeling more into, and I really want to go because there's going to be people, or, you know, whatever the reasons are. And maybe feeling more into the both and seeing what happens in terms of, well, you know, this party might be the perfect time to have the conversation, and then I'll be able to enjoy the food that she always serves that's great. Whatever, but our perspective a lot of times can be either I don't go because I don't want to face this conversation, or I do go and I'm just going to enjoy this food because I don't have incomplete conversations with the food. But maybe there's room in between for something totally different. And what happens is, you know, last time when we met, we were talking about these personas that come up, these little attitudes and beliefs that protect us, but are also a lot of times very, very young from childhood. And sometimes they can only see a black or a white. And sometimes they can only evaluate a pro or a con. And they're not so big on the, what else could be here? How else could I act? What else could be a benefit in this situation? or just facing the kind of scary, what if what my mind is coming up with right now is only these two possibilities, there's really more than. And that's scary to our little fear-based personas sometimes. So it's an indication maybe that a persona's up.
Well, and I've always had this definition of fear being an acronym for false expectations or experiences appearing real.
Yeah. And I recently saw a quote that was, I don't remember it now, but it ends with the word, something like facing experiences and rise. And I like this feeling of rising above whatever's scaring us. And it's okay to be scared. I mean, that's what we're hardwired to feel. It's one of the emotions that's in us, is recognizing fear and facing it, seeing, oh, okay, that's not such a big boogeyman after all. And then being willing to rise above it and to maybe something that we don't know what it's going to be, especially when we're in the fear-facing stage.
Well, I was given an example years ago where eagles, they have a tendency to be able to fly at great altitudes. And one of the natural, not an enemy, but certainly it's a species of birds that do go after eagles and just annoy the bejeebers out of them, are crows. And crows will nip and pick and that kind of thing to the eagles. But the eagles are then able to soar above those crows and soar above that problem.
What a great visual, and for me, audio of these kind of persona-based stories that are running in the back of my mind so often. Oh, you shouldn't do that because you will make a fool of yourself, or you're not good enough, or, you're too old, or, whatever the story is. And it sounds just like that annoying crow caw. But yeah, to think of soaring like an eagle above that.
To me, it's a great
it.
visual.
Yeah.
Now, I was also told at a very early age, keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt.
Well, yeah, and who's judging the
Exactly.
fool part?
Exactly.
More and more I find that I don't know what may end up making a difference to someone else. So if something feels really true and important in what I want to say, I'm allowing myself, go ahead and express it, and just, that's all your job is. You don't control what happens after, someone else receives it or doesn't receive it, their choice.
And when you talk about encountering somebody at a party, they may or may not show up to begin with, and even if they do, it would be actually in an environment where it might be neutralized, where you can actually approach that individual, or if they approach you, to get that conflict resolved in a very non-threatening atmosphere.
Yeah, and I love the image of you don't know who you're going to really be dealing with at a party, because don't we all kind of have a party mask that we at least start out wearing?
Yeah, that we do. And, you go in and everything's happy, 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 unless something does go terribly wrong, but the odds of that happening are relatively slim.
And that's what I would like to help change. I'd like for all of us to be showing up as a just as we are party instead of a masquerade party. Any party, I think, a lot of times is a masquerade party because we're in a persona. What if every party was a pajama party and we showed up just as we were, comfortable and soft and vulnerable and able to have a good time anyway?
Well, when I think of a masquerade party, what the scene comes to mind is from the musical Phantom of the Opera, where there is a masquerade party, and they're cascading down the staircase, and they're talking about, and they're singing about masquerade. This is a masquerade party.
I love Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, and what a great visual again, because only half of his face is covered up. So, what if we become aware of the mask? And so, if nothing else, we're only partially, hiding behind, and then easier to fall away and reveal what we truly are. And that's the real gift that we have, is because we're all so unique. And when we're willing to show up as we are, that's the first step to letting that unique light shine through, I think.
Well, another great saying that I've come across is that everybody is unique. You're one of a kind. You stand out just like everybody else.
Yeah, divine paradox.
That's right.
Yeah. And again, it shows the beauty of what is really an opposite. Is there even really an opposite? As you keep being willing to expand and include things that you thought were could only be one or the other, you start to kind of realize, wow, this is what infinity is like. This is what infinity includes and feels like, and is to reveal.
Well, here's an interesting concept, and you can run with this. You have on one hand the color black, and on the other side, the opposite is white. So is white a shade of black, or is black transitioned from the color white? Then you have every shade of gray in between.
Yeah. And those shades of gray, that's where the answer to that question is going to be. Yeah.
And again, Star Wars comes to mind. You're going to the dark side. And, again, it's a matter, I think, of perspective.
Well, and we have this notion that dark is bad. Is it? I like to sleep in the dark, and I need to sleep. And plants, which are, one of the most natural forms of life, rest in darkness and then bloom in light. But the bloom wouldn't happen for most species of plants if there wasn't that time in the darkness to just be quiet and to integrate what needs to happen next with who and where we are at this moment. So darkness has its, I always think of darkness and cool and soothing together. To me, darkness and dark night of the soul are really great places and spaces to be willing to be in, as is, that brilliant light that can be calling us.
Well, you mentioned about sleeping in the dark. I prefer a bed myself.
In the dark.
In the dark. But it is that we need that rest, and we can't really achieve that full rest when you're surrounded by light. Now, I go back a few years when I was doing radio full time, and I would do overnights. Well, I had to sleep during the day, but in order to sleep, I'd have to darken the windows to make it dark so that I could sleep.
Yeah. So I think it's important to realize that underneath everything, even if it seems like a bad or a negative experience, is going to be a gift. And by saying, no, I only am choosing light because it's white and it's bright and it's light, then we are setting ourselves up to get burned at some point. And also we're missing out on all of the gifts and lessons that are in a darkness. And, a lot of the things that we think of as darkness are really just, within ourselves, meaning maybe when we feel scared or when we feel angry, or showing these places of us that don't look, party mask perfect. The mask isn't going to start to crack and soften and become our true way of expressing until we let it just be what it is and say, okay, you're safe here. And then, okay, maybe it'll cry, be ugly, do something stupid. But then the next time it shows up, it's going to be pretty smart. It's going to be pretty true.
And that being said, what I'm hearing you say off of that is we need to be comfortable with ourselves for who we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I get brownie points for that one.
Yes, you do.
So, in wrapping this all up, if you were to sum up your thoughts about the blending of the opposites to make, we talked early on about the holidays, having separate and distinct periods. And I know one person that leaves up their holiday decorations all year long, and you know who I'm talking about.
It's not me.
No, it's not you. But if you were to summarize everything that we have talked about here today, what would you say?
I go back to my definition of love, being willing to be in the same space as. And be willing to be in the same space as your opposites and bring them into that space of inclusion so that it gets all soft and all accepting and all being loved, and then you feel safer being who and what and true you really are.
That, I think, puts a nice cap on it. Now, that also being said, it's always a good idea at this point in our program for you to give out your contact information, web address, email, all those kind of good things if people wanted to get a hold of you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I would love to hear from you. My email address is Michelle Hubbard, 4, letter U, @gmail.com. And my website, new website creator is michelle4u.com. And my phone number is area code 805-814-6884.
Wonderful. Michelle Hubbard, our guide to the unknown. Michelle, you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Oh, thank you. You too.
I'm going to eat lots of turkey. And we'll see you next time right here on News Junkies, a production of the Heritage Media Group.